Now, our next speaker is also from the United States, and actually, so John and I, we're big fans of wrestling, and we thought we'd make him feel welcome, make him feel like at home. So if you'll indulge me with a kind of like my faux American accent. So, ladies and gentlemen, in the blue corner, weighing in at 100 and something pounds, the undefeated champion of new LinkedIn features, all the way from Dallas, Texas, United States of America. Let's get ready to rumble with Mr. Ken D. Turner!
All right. You can't get a better entry than that. Gus is amazing. I'm excited to be here, so bear with me. I think I just put this PowerPoint together today and gave it to John, and that caused all sorts of problems. But so we're going to start here. I like to look at LinkedIn a little differently. To me, we hear about how to make a perfect profile, how to do this, how to post, how to do all these things. I like to look at LinkedIn from the inside out. What's going on? What motivates LinkedIn? And how do we become the perfect partner within LinkedIn so that LinkedIn promotes us? And believe it or not, it does work. I come from a long family of artists. This is actually my brother's painting. If you ever see any of my videos, this is usually in the background. I'm the only one who does some of this, but doesn't make a living by this kind of art. My kind of art is connecting with people and speaking and just enjoying these little differences. So, that's kind of where this comes in. So, best part about having a 3-story tall screen is it's like digital Ozempic, right? Makes you really skinny. Actually, I could only afford a small body double because I couldn't go for the extra wide, so this is what I end up with, right? When I put it together, I was like, that's pretty funny, so it's gonna stay. So, what's in, right? What is in? And I look at that, and a lot of us here have had great experiences within LinkedIn. It is a social good site, right? We network, we make friends. How many people here have met somebody on LinkedIn that you would say, if I was in your town, I could crash on your couch, right? That's it, right? That's social good. All right, the purple couch. But that is really a big piece of how we see LinkedIn, right? So we always look at LinkedIn as, what can LinkedIn give me? That's not what LinkedIn is there for. LinkedIn, believe it or not, is a business. And sorry, my emoji didn't translate here with PC and Mac, but it is a business, right? It's there to make money. We are renters on LinkedIn, right? We don't own the land we've got our house on. And we've got to kind of respect that and understand that. It is a business. It's estimated to be $17 billion this coming year. It was $15 billion last year. What fascinates me is, what would you think is the main driver behind this kind of revenue? Anybody have an idea? Advertising, that's a piece. Recruitment, data, absolutely. It is data, it is recruitment. Advertising is in there. If you think about data is gold, right? Well, LinkedIn's the gold mine. That's why you see all these hackers trying to get in there and basically steal data, because it's all here. LinkedIn started as the world's largest database of resumes. And it began with Recruiter. And if you think about recruiters, they're there to find us. And LinkedIn thought, what? If we can put this together and give them the ability to join in for free, they'll put their resume here, we can add some jobs, and we can sell this to recruiters, but it still wasn't enough to attract everybody, right? We wanted more. We wanted the ability to network. Believe it or not, when LinkedIn rolled out, we couldn't even post. We didn't even have a picture on our profiles when it first rolled out. So all these things evolved, and they really understood, well, we needed a little bit more. What I find fascinating is LinkedIn is the only social media platform that has been wildly profitable since day one, since year one. All the other ones, you look at Facebook, I think finally broke profit. And it's only a small amount. It's a couple million. It's not big. All the other platforms are paying their bills, they're paying their employees, but they're not making money. And it was because of the way they approach things. And I think LinkedIn was brilliant in how they kind of built things up. 65% of that annual revenue comes from what I call M to M, selling members to other members. And that's basically what it is. If you're a recruiter, you're a member, right? If you are a business and maybe you're in Sales Navigator, you're a member. That's where that 65% of that 17 billion, right, $11 billion comes from there. Advertising, believe it or not, is about 5%. To me, that's fascinating. This is really the tail that wags the dog. If you think about what recruiters want and what businesses want, so they're buying into Recruiter or they're buying into Sales Navigator, you think about what they want. And if you can then create yourself as that high demand product, then everything within LinkedIn starts to fall together. It starts to follow you, it starts to promote you. And to me, that's really important to know. This is the other piece. We're not the customer. Members are the product. They're selling us, right? So the better the product we are, the more they're going to promote us, right? And to me, that is a fascinating thought. And when we always think about it, if you're a member, does anybody have a phone number for LinkedIn when you need help? No. If you have Sales Navigator or Recruiter, do you have a phone number to call LinkedIn for help? Yes. Difference, right? Big difference. And when you start thinking about, why did LinkedIn do that? That makes members mad because we're the product, right? We're on the shelf. We're there to be sold. And when you know that, it's not bad because it's a business, right? Businesses have to sell. We just happen to be their product. Now, they've tried to give us other things that make our life a little better. I'm always used to looking up here. I can't even look down here, and I should. Businesses are those customers. This is how it started. I think we got a little out of line there, but when we start looking at LinkedIn, the reason it was wildly profitable is it was based on a concept of 6 degrees of separation. Does everybody know what 6 degrees of separation means? Good. Because it's important to realize that. And basically it means within 6 handshakes, you can meet anybody in the world. The more first level handshakes you have, the less of the other 5 that you need. Right? Makes sense, because that's how your network expands. Well, one of the things that was out there that was really hot, and this is what actually stimulated the founders of LinkedIn, was this game called the Kevin Bacon game, or 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. And Kevin Bacon has done, I think it's like 500 or so movies. And he can relate himself back to everybody in the movie industry by some connection within his network. So if you wanted to know how Kevin Bacon and John Wayne were connected, you could figure it out by the movies and maybe the movie directors or the makeup people or whatever it was. You could always find a connection, right? And the way you play this game, if you've ever played it, has anybody played this particular game? No, Jillian has. Maybe it's an American thing. But when you play this game, the shortest direction or the shortest route there wins. So if you were given that task, how does Kevin Bacon and John Wayne connect? If you got the shortest route, you'd be the winner, right? Probably get beer for the night. That's how it works. LinkedIn, believe it or not, owns this patent. And I find that fascinating. They were out there. It wasn't created or designed by LinkedIn. It was actually another group that had put out a social platform, and it went broke very quickly because they didn't know how to monetize this. They understood the concept, but they didn't know how to monetize the piece. Believe it or not, Zuckerberg was after this. If Mark Zuckerberg had gotten this before LinkedIn, there wouldn't have been a LinkedIn. So LinkedIn, at that point, actually gave it an extraordinary bid that Zuckerberg didn't expect coming, and they were able to scoop it up at the last moment. So they actually now own this. If anybody's geek enough, you can scan that QR code, you can download 6 Degrees of Separation for a social media site. And it will kind of walk you through that process. What's interesting in that process is it really starts to define, shall we say, the math in the network. And I like math as much as I like words, but it defines the math. So if you ever want to figure out how it gets there, this starts to answer that. And I think that's kind of fascinating. Some people would look at it and say, I don't even want to know, right? But to me, it brings up the whys, right? Why the third degree? Does anybody know why things stop at the third degree within LinkedIn? That's so they can monetize the other 3, right? If your network is up to 3, you can't see 4, 5, and 6. 4, 5, and 6 can't see you. Anybody ever tells you you could put a post out there and have 1 billion people see it is not telling you the truth. Because you could technically only have up to about your third, and even then it's starting to fall apart, right? So this is kind of the basis behind the revenue that's made LinkedIn wildly profitable. So why, I always look at that as why no 11 for groups? Groups breaks the 6 degree rule. For a long time, if you were in a group, anybody else in that group you could communicate with, right? So how do I monetize a system if I just gave you the key to open up the whole database, right? If I want to know recruiters, I joined a recruiter group and I connected with everybody. Or I want to know this, I joined that group and I connected with everybody. I just started getting groups and connecting. Makes sense, right? You broke their monetary system. So if you ever think about where groups were with LinkedIn for a long time, it was the hot place to be. Who thinks it's a hot place to be now besides John's group? Right? Is it a hot place to be? Do you do any other groups besides John's group? Right? Yes, we got 1. 2, okay. And that's why LinkedIn doesn't promote groups. That's why LinkedIn won't give groups the ability to do audio events inside a group. Wouldn't that be cool? Right? They don't want to do that. That's why LinkedIn just recently decided to cut off how many times, if you're a basic account or a premium, how many times you can reach out to people within a group that are beyond your network, right? So they said, we're going to stop that. So you're going to see a little more of that, a little more limiting in some of those groups. It's still a great experience, and it really depends on who runs that group and what you get out of it and what you put into it. But that's why LinkedIn doesn't address groups. They don't want them to go away because it's where LinkedIn kind of started. And so they're attached to it. They don't want to just throw it away. But if you ever wonder why, because there's so many things it could do, this is the reason why. It breaks the revenue cycle. Does anybody know why 30,000 connection limit? Oh, say anybody. If you do the math in 6 degrees of separation, at 30,000 connections, you should be able to access at least a quarter to a half of LinkedIn's database. How then, if you can do that, how do I sell you Sales Navigator if you've got a focused network? If I wanted the auto industry, right, and I built my network, would I need to pay for anything? If I was able to go beyond 30,000, if I could hit 60,000, could I get almost all the database? They knew that. And so very beginning, when they set up 6 degrees of separation, it's why they locked down at the third degree, and then why they said, now you can't have any more than this. So I always think, why followers? If you think about it, you're not really connected to a follower. You just know that they're somewhat interested in what you do. They may have clicked follow once and then forgot, right? It's just a list to them sometimes. And LinkedIn did that because they had people coming to LinkedIn that weren't really looking to network. What they were looking for was the ability to kind of get people to basically watch them, follow them, be influenced by them, right? They hated the 30,000 limit. If I can only have 30,000 connections and I can only get X amount of reach, why am I going to bring my stuff to LinkedIn? And that's why they brought in these followers. These are some of the bigger names in here. I think this list is about a year old. But these people wouldn't be active on LinkedIn if it wasn't the ability to have these followers, because then they couldn't post and get this kind of experience. And LinkedIn knew that. So that's why it created these things. To me, it's somewhat of a vanity metric, but there's opportunity within followers, right? You can go look at your list. You can decide whether you want to reach out. If they're following you, they're interested in you. Perfect warm lead, right? To kind of reach back and develop from there. So that kind of establishes things. So if we're inside of LinkedIn, whose goal inside of LinkedIn is to be found by the right opportunities? Hopefully everybody, right? That's a big piece of it. And LinkedIn, I always find fascinating, is they made it really easy to make a profile, right? You just kind of do what it tells you to do, and then they tell you, well, you're missing this if you want to be that, right? And you complete it. What LinkedIn doesn't tell you is a lot of the components and how that profile actually works inside the database. How does it fit into their search process? They don't tell you that, they don't want to tell you that, and they avoid it. So to me, that's part of this. So you have a choice now on LinkedIn. You can be 1 in a billion or number 1 in a billion for what you do. But to do that, you have to then really kind of understand the database. This is one they popped out, I think, right at the end of the year. Believe it or not, there was a debate within LinkedIn because the billion point was a change in direction for LinkedIn. It was established when they hit a billion, they were going to change a lot of things that LinkedIn is doing. And one of those is they were going to go from this, hey, we want everybody to have this equal opportunity. That's always been kind of the pitch with LinkedIn, to now we want to start monetizing even more. And that's where you saw pressure coming in. As this number was approaching, you saw pressure coming in to take things away from freemium, right? Basic, which I think is a bad way to build value. You should add more to premium to make me want to buy it, right? That's where it came in. So if we start looking at LinkedIn as that database, and we start thinking about the principles, the database best practices, and those are accurate, complete, and accessible. So when we're building our profile, obviously you hear from LinkedIn, it should be accurate, right? You shouldn't be fibbing. Does happen, right? It should be complete. That's why they say if you do one more thing, you're going to be all-star, right? And it should be accessible because that's what we want. We want to be found in that process. When you don't have a structure, a system, you end up with files like this, right? Have you ever inherited something, a position, and they say, oh yeah, the files are in the back room? And you see this, right? This is kind of what we're doing when we fill out a profile and we don't know what it's doing in the database. We're creating this for us. There is a component, and Tina's going to talk about this from the recruiter side. I'm going to talk about a little bit from the member side, and that is market value filters. If you ran a grocery store and I sent you a product and the product didn't fit in any of your categories, right? They wouldn't get eye level where your money's made. It wouldn't get end cap where you have your promotions, right? It wouldn't be up at the register. It would be back in the back of the store by that 3-tier shelf that's near the bathroom, right? It's got the dusty, dirty cans on it, stuff that's been discontinued. That's the other shelf, right? I don't know what to do with it. I'm going to put it in the other shelf. If we don't follow market value filters, we end up on that other shelf. And so people need to kind of realize that. And there are ways of looking at this because sometimes the market value filters don't feel right. We did a transition many years ago with the head of HR for Yahoo, big internet company at the time. I don't know if they're still a big internet company, but they were at the time. And this person was about number 3 or 4 in the organization. His title, because it was an internet company, right? Ping pong, beer, all that kind of stuff at the office. His title was Cloud9 Navigator. How many recruiters do you think are looking for a new Cloud9 Navigator? 0, right? We updated it to Chief Human Resource Officer. Within 2 weeks, he was basically scalped off LinkedIn for a dream opportunity, whereas before he'd been just trying to get anybody to visit his profile. Now, he's still working for Yahoo, so what we did is we incorporated into his definition of his position, internally known as the Cloud9 Navigator. So if anybody at Yahoo said, wait, that's not your title, it is, because that's what every other company would call it. Believe it or not, there are 6,800 now market value titles for just positions, right? Market value filters go beyond positions. But if you start typing within the drop-down box, right? Or if you start typing within the open box, you should get a drop-down box. If the title that represents what you do appears in there, that's the one you should select. If you keep titling and all of a sudden the drop-down box goes away, you are on the other shelf. Doesn't matter. If you are the regional director of North America, that's not going to come up as a market value title. Regional director might come up, or regional director of sales or something like that might come up. You select that one and then you define within the body of it. So if they ever had to do a background check, right? Call the company and ask for the Cloud9 Navigator or the Chief Human Resource Officer. They want to be able to say both, give it to them, but you got to select this. Now, market value filters come in several places within your profile. Location. Do you know how many times location database has been changed on LinkedIn in the last 4 years? 3 times, and one of them was up to 30% of all the locations changed. For me, it was Dallas-Fort Worth. I think it was called Marketplace or something like that. Now it is Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. If I built my profile 2-3 years ago, it had the old one in there. If somebody was trying to find me for what I do and they wanted it in the Metroplex, I didn't exist. I thought I did, but within the database, I didn't. So I wasn't functioning well with the database. So location is one. Another component in there, industry. The industry database has changed several times. So you want to go back and check. I was working on one the other day. It was writing and editing, and was spelt out. Or it was the other way around. Now it's the symbol and. If you had the other one, because you picked it when it was available in the database, it's no longer accurate. So you made yourself invisible. You got to respect these. Same thing with this one that was just there for a second. I'm sorry, these GIFs kind of move quick. When you get into the type of work you do, right? If you think about it, remote is one of the toughest jobs to get, maybe the one you want. Hybrid is one that companies are trying to make work, right? You could be remote, you might have to come in the office a little bit, but if you really need to get a job, if you put in the one that's on site, probably every recruiter in the place is going to be calling you because nobody puts that, right? So think about it in that sense. What is the high demand product and does it fit you? Now, you don't want to put on site if you're only going to do remote, but you want to make sure you're going after these things. When you get into positions, employment type, which I think is the next one down here, you'll notice there's a gradation from full-time all the way down to, I think it's seasonal. What has more value if you're trying to hire an employee, a seasonal employee or a full-time employee? If it's a full-time job, it's going to be full-time employee, right? So this is a peek into LinkedIn and how they rank you within this kind of positioning, right? So if you think about it in that sense, if you can put full-time, that's what you want to put. So those are components. One of the other market values that's out there is current employment. So if anybody is in transition and they don't have a company page pulled over, the LinkedIn database, even if you use their little, I think it's tool, it's Career Break. If you use Career Break, there you're actually telling the database you're unemployed. The other one, it knows because you didn't fill anything in. Put something in there. Volunteer somewhere, join a temp agency, hang your own shingle out, build a business page, but link it, close it, so in the database you are considered employed. And if you think about recruiters, so maybe nobody in this room is looking for a job today, and hopefully nobody is tomorrow, right? But if you think about if we become the perfect product for the biggest customer on LinkedIn, guess what LinkedIn does with our profile everywhere else on that site? It pushes it, right? Because they know this is a good product, this is what we want to push forward. So timed value of data, right? If I was selling you a piece of meat and it was 3 weeks old, or I had a piece of meat that I just cut off the cow, right? I'm sorry, John. Which one would you pay more for? That'd be definitely aged meat. I left it on the back patio if I didn't tell you that part. So, which do you pay? Sometimes you don't get the barbecue lit, right? Which would you pay more for? Obviously, that time has value. And what LinkedIn looks at it, they look at our profile and they look at the timing of our profile. Now, it's in a couple of different ways. If you open up like an info card on somebody's profile, it'll tell you when they last updated, right? How old's that picture? How old's their contact? You could actually go back, reload your same picture, reload your same contact, and now you have a better timed value within LinkedIn because they know the more timely it is, right? The newer it is, the more accurate it probably is. And so that makes you a better product. So here's the scope on timed value. So verified profile is another piece that a lot of people are thinking about, right? They're concerned, they're not sure. This has a big impact on LinkedIn because again, they're looking at us as their product. If they know we are who we say we are, at least by name, they're more confident in us in presenting us as a product. So I have people on the inside who will stop talking to me if I ask the right questions. And that's when I know I've got it right? That's one of those, I guess, benefits of friends at LinkedIn. You know them long enough that if you call them and you guess it right and they just say, I can't talk to you, you got your finger on it. You know, they never say yes because they could get in trouble and you never quote their names. But that's a big piece of it. Verified now is a big piece of it. In the US, we have it easy. US, Canada, Mexico, you can do it with a driver's license, right, in your mobile app. I think most of every other I think there's now 60 countries. Most of them, they're going to use an ID chipped passport. Here's the good thing. You don't have to trust LinkedIn with that information. You just have to trust the third-party processor. And most of those are the processors that are used for international travel, right? So if you're in any of those kind of TSA kind of programs, that processor's under that kind of scrutiny. The one that works here in Europe is, with the UK Data Commissioner or the European Union, it's under all those data privileges. That's all connected. And LinkedIn, all LinkedIn finds out is your name matches your profile, and they will say, you used a passport and you're from this country. That's all they get. Texas, they say driver's license and from this state, right? That's all LinkedIn gets. That's why if you ever have to then verify to LinkedIn, maybe you got bumped out somehow, locked out of your profile, and they said, we need to make sure it's you. Guess what they're going to ask you? Can you upload, and they'll probably ask you guys, driver's license at that point. Can you upload a driver's license so we'd be sure? That tells you right there, they don't have this information. And that's actually, if you read into LinkedIn's privacy policy under this, they don't have that information. They don't get that information. And that's why they've set up with these third parties. But if I'm there and I get sometimes 60 invite requests a day. If I'm looking at those invite requests and I'm like, I got a little bit of time today to get some of these out of the way, guess which ones I go to first? Probably the ones with the badge or that have a personalized writing to them, right? They're, to me, priorities. They've done a little bit more than everybody else, so I'm going to look at them a little better. It kind of helps me get through that process. So again, be our best product. And this is key. We all know this about the kind of the social good of the site. It is networking. This is one of my favorite phrases. I learned this many years ago. Networking always beats not working. That doesn't mean you're out of work. You could be in work, but if you continue to network, work is always going to come to you. And that's, everything I've done. I've had 6 pivots in my career. 3 of them were forced upon me. 3 of them I forced myself into, right? I made those decisions, but every one of them was solved with networking. That and understanding how they data process you in that. New LinkedIn features. This is a passion of mine. We've got a very intelligent group here. I didn't put together a whole list of them because I already have a list, and I do this list a little differently than I think most out there. I don't claim that I found them, right? I give credit to those who do. I always look at new LinkedIn features as the icing on the cake, right? It's not the cake itself. It's not what you're going to exist on. It's nice when you get it, but when you don't have it yet, it's at least nice to know it's coming. So you can kind of plan, right? Everything on LinkedIn, when we do rollouts, LinkedIn was designed, again, remember, to be that database of resumes, right? They never designed it to be this kind of access where they could just throw something new on it and all the code would work. So what they've done is they've designed it 5 waves. So it's going to be 5 waves that go out in a rollout. They're going to be randomized. Nobody gets in the wave, nobody gets in the first wave all the time, although they seem to brag when they do. It's just them bragging because they did, maybe, or maybe they got into a little later. They're going to be timed, right? So that wave that rolls out is going to be out there for a certain amount of time, and what they're doing is they're looking at it, go, did it break anything? Did it work? How can we fix it and make it better for the next wave, right? And then the final thing is, it increases in size. And so that's how you get to a rollout. An average rollout is 30 to 90 days. They're doing this so they don't blow up LinkedIn. Because if they rolled everything out at the same time, I want to give everybody here the new LinkedIn feature today, and it blew up the site for a week, how happy would you be with that new LinkedIn feature? You'd hate it, right? Absolutely hate it. And that's why they don't do it. 75% of the people, when they get a new LinkedIn feature, do not know they have one for 60 days plus. So you might have actually been in the first wave and you didn't know it because nobody told you, right? You didn't know where to look. It was there, it was hidden. We have a choice. We can either fear this or we can embrace it with, joy of, right, instead of fear of. That's a big piece. And I always look at it, LinkedIn keeps marching on, right? It keeps doing this stuff. It's not going to stop. It's going to continue to bring in new features. It actually has a quota from Microsoft to do a certain amount per quarter, and that's reviewed at the Microsoft review meeting. And so they're being pressured to make these changes. That's why some of the changes, when you look at them, you're like, why would you do that? Why don't you fix this over here that doesn't work? The reason they don't fix it, they don't get credit for it. They don't get their bonuses for it. What drives any engineer or product person or anything else? How much are you going to pay me at the end of the year, right? If I do what you want me to do, I get this. If I do what the members want who are not the customers, I don't get a bonus. That's why when you start looking at this from basically the inside out, that's why that happens. That intransparency. Why doesn't LinkedIn ever tell you, hey, we got a new feature? The reason they don't tell you is in that rollout process. Let's say it dies, and some of them have died in the first wave. Well, now I've just announced it to the whole group, and then I got to come back and say, well, we kind of goofed up. It wasn't any good. It didn't do what it was supposed to do, and then the press is on it and everybody else. So they do these waves in secrecy, right? And the time that you hear from an executive that a new feature is available, it's actually old. Right? It's usually 90 days old, and you're like, oh, Mac told me about that already. That's how it works. So this is me, borrowing from Harry Potter since we're here, right? I think I was 8. No, I was like 6 or something. Captures in the wild. One of the things that I started doing many, many years ago is I started collecting all these LinkedIn features. And I started to share them with everybody, with people you would say are your competition. And what I did differently than I think other LinkedIn people do in building this list is I give credit to anybody who finds it, even if they don't know what it is. Because I'll get pictures of stuff and they're like, I have no idea what this is or what it does. Like, take another picture, play with it a little bit. We'll figure it out. I'll get some of our friends at LinkedIn. We'll make some guesses, and when they stop talking, we know we have it. And we make that list and we share it openly, and it does help. So I think the first time I did this was probably 2019. There was, I think, 50. And then we got it, or 2020, 2021, there was probably 40. 22, it went up to 100. Last year, it was 200 changes, right? And this year we're already at 64. A lot of these you might have. You might be in that percentage that has it and didn't know. It can be your competitive advantage to turn it on, to lock it in, to use it, right? Or to tell other people about it. So that's why we do this. And again, we give everybody credit. And I apologize, I'm running a minute or two over. One of the things I want to do today is we're going to try to see if this group can discover a new LinkedIn feature, okay? Last week, I think both John and I were making some trouble for LinkedIn. So we posted a link that we do often that helps you give the product group feedback. Product group said, I'm tired of that. We're going to kill the link. We figured this out in about the middle of the day. And John did a help request. I did a help request. I think it came back to John first that said, we've changed how we're going to do the feedback form to the product group. And the way they're going to do it, if everybody will grab their mobile app, right, open up LinkedIn, and I'm hoping this will work. We may have nobody in the room. I did this a few days back in Dallas. We got about a 10% response rate. So if you're on your feed, on your mobile app, what you want to do is shake it left and right, like that. And all of a sudden, if you have something that pops up that said feedback form, then you've got the new feature. Now, maybe it's 10% in the US, maybe it's not here yet. That's all. Did anybody get it? So we're not even getting the 10%. That's sad. So in Dallas, at least we got a 10% response rate. If you find you get it later, you'll know. But again, that's sometimes how we find these things, right? And we got to test them. We got to share the knowledge because LinkedIn is not going to share it with us. And I apologize if we didn't get anybody get a hit on it, but that happens, right? That's like Jillian says, that's live. Sometimes we can't edit this out. That's all I've got for you today.
Change the algorithm, Kevin.
Thank you.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Thank you so much, Kevin. Now, another round of applause. A louder, yeah, Mr. Kevin D. Turner, all the way from Dallas, Texas, United States. Thank you so much.